You forecast this for a while. You did not believe that they would make a big move, if any, at the trade deadline, and they really didn't.
Yeah, I don't think that – I never thought it was realistic that they were going to go after the Max Crosbys or Myles Garretts or Bradley Chubbs. Like, there's a reason that those three guys haven't moved. And I think yesterday, certainly the news on Dayo Odengbo leaving for their, being out for the rest of the season because of the Achilles rupture, like, you had to do something. You couldn't just stand pat because you have two currently, like, on the roster, you have two healthy defensive ends. With Austin Booker, it's great that he came back. It's great that he had the game that he did in a rotational role the other day in Cincinnati. But then behind him, it's Daniel Hardy. Like, they had to do something. I never anticipated it would be as big of a swing as what they made 2 years ago with Montez Sweat. But ultimately, this is depth. And is it quality depth? Who knows? Like, it's another high upside guy, somebody who was a first-round pick in 2021, but now he gets a chance to potentially play a lot more than he did in a very crowded defensive line room in Cleveland. He wasn't able to crack that rotation and was expandable, and I don't think there's any harm in giving up a sixth-round pick for somebody that you need at a position like that right now.
Courtney, is there any chance they pluck a cornerback or even another defensive end off of some team's practice squad?
I mean, there's always that possibility, but like the depth right now, like the trade deadline's over. So you guys tell me who you think. If there's anybody like on the street right now that's not named Asante Samuel Jr., who's coming off of that spine fusion, like I know that he said that he's going to try to visit some teams soon. I don't know if that's a risk that you want to take, but like there aren't that many names, that many quality names available to sign off the street. So maybe there is. If there's another, they can't afford another injury. We know that, but if there is a situation where they look at somebody else's practice squad, again, that's depth. That's not something that like moves the needle all that much. But if they have another injury or if they determine that they just need more bodies, then that is pretty much the only other route you can go since the trade deadline has passed.
Courtney Cronin joining us on the Yingling guest hotline. I would certainly bring Asante Samuel in for a visit, and I understand what you're getting. This is a longer play. That it is a big time surgery. He may not be ready for a while, but look, beggars can't be choosers. And like what I likened it to, Courtney, is like when a Cubs team or a Sox team would go out and they would sign a guy coming off of Tommy John, and they knew they weren't getting him until maybe the very end of the year, but it was worth the gamble, and you could always sign him to an incentive-laden deal.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like he had this thing in April, and, they can bring in whoever they want now that's on the street for these free agent tryouts. He had a good start to his career. He had a catastrophic, really serious injury and had to have back surgery. I don't know if that's somebody who you anticipate contributing right away, but you don't make that move for the future sort of deal there. Like, it's the secondary still needs work. I think they're holding out hope still that Kyler Gordon's going to be able to come back starting week 12, but they did make one of those moves ahead of the deadline when they got Gardner Johnson, and I thought he played well. I thought all things considered in the first game on a short week, getting back into the swing of things in this defense, he played well. So maybe that's enough for now. We'll see. But certainly what happened in the final 2.5 minutes of that game and how the secondary played, obviously influenced by the fact that they couldn't rush the passer, does give you a little bit of pause and concern that it's not all fixed because they brought one player in who was sitting on the street for 2 weeks and now has a chance to, solidify himself in a bigger role, in more, I guess, more reps and having a role that he'll have for the next couple of weeks until their starting nickel corner can come back.
Courtney, in general terms, what are your thoughts now, 24 hours plus after that game and how they won? The offense did their job, the defense, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I think that for the first time this season, like Ben Johnson said yesterday, the offense carried the defense. And you like seeing that because, I remember trying to pick this game last week when Pat and I were doing our Thursday episode of the podcast, and I wasn't willing to, go high score on it because I wasn't sure if they could win a shootout with Caleb Williams. We've seen him get the offense in position in the Washington game to walk it off with a field goal, and certainly the defense did its part to force that turnover and then put the offense back on the field. But now that we've seen what Caleb can do with this offense in crunch time, I'm sure they would they would like him to do more on first and second down on that final drive before he had that 14-yard scramble. But the offense showed that it was capable. And I think that's a really good sign that they can finish games. And it's the theme that we've been talking about for months now, or weeks. They can actually close out games the way that they did not do, or were not capable, or were not well coached enough to do last year. So that's good. But defensively, I'll be really curious to hear from Dennis Allen this Thursday, assuming he still wants to go back and rehash what those 49 seconds were, where they, allow Cincinnati to come right back in it. Because that's, a big part of that is they couldn't get any pressure on Joe Flacco. He threw for 470 yards on a bum shoulder. That's unacceptable. They should never have been that. It's a good offense with elite talent on the outside. Don't get me wrong, but there's no way in hell that they should have allowed them to come back in the way that they did and make that a game in the final 2 minutes.
Courtney, do you think that this will be the game that we circle, though, in regard to Colston Loveland? This is the game where he broke out, and then he just continued to produce from there on out? Or do you just believe there are so many skill guys that it still could go up and down the rest of the year?
It's funny because I was doing the fantasy football show on ESPN2 on Sunday morning, and they just threw one at me at the end about Cole and Colston and how's it going to look now that Cole's back? And, who'd the first target of the game go to? I mean, it was an incomplete pass, but it went to who Caleb Williams' security blanket has been over the middle of the field, and your veteran tight end. That injury that he has now, the concussion, how long he's going to be in the protocol, all of that, that paved the way for Colston to have the game that he did. And, when he had his moment, 6 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, that's why he's a first-round pick. That's why Ben Johnson was so enamored with him and had to have him, his version of Sam Laporta here in Chicago. But, I'm curious, because when Cole gets back, can he still have that same level of production? Because somebody's got to be a run blocker. When they're living in 12 personnel and knowing how many bodies they have elsewhere, 3 receivers that are very talented right now in a top-heavy room, the ball distribution is not going to be consistently like that. And I think that Ben's been very honest that it's not it's a week-to-week thing. It's not Colston Loveland at 118 yards this past game. You expect him to do that every game. He's shown he's capable, but I think that it truly is something that is based on who's out there and, just from the passing game perspective, who's out there, how they're being defended, how Caleb's playing that day. But the other side of this, could we project another game like that from Kyle Monangai? I think you absolutely can. I would slow play DeAndre Swift coming back because he's got a groin injury. You want to avoid surgery as much as you can hope to hold out on this. It's a soft tissue injury that he's been dealing with for weeks. I would shut him down another week if it's as severe as they're making it to be, where he could not practice at all last week. I would try to keep him on ice to make sure he's healthy. So when he comes back, they can get the balance back that they had 2 weeks ago against the Saints. But keep riding Monangai because that's the best we've seen that rushing offense all year, what we saw last week. And it's because they have a traditional every down power back in there who can go in between the tackles and run hard. And I thought the offensive line blocked their ass off, in a way that we had not seen to this point this season.
Would you do that too? That's a good idea, Waddle. Would you go with these soft tissues?
Oh, yeah.
Would you? And he's been nursing it for weeks.
Yeah.
Would you sit him for another week?
I think you have to be, very cautious with this. I'm very comfortable. They gave Monangai 26 carries. And
most of any running back at all last week, which is it's telling because they trust him and they know he can handle a workload and he can produce.
I also think, he's a willing participant in pass protection and, he's a decent receiver. So I don't have any problem with Courtney's plan. What's your plan for kicker, Courtney?
Oh, good.
Look,
or what do you expect their plan is?
Yeah, that was
kicker.
an evil laugh there. What was the laugh about?
I don't blame Cairo for the blocked kick. I think that they had far more issues on special teams last week than, one player. However, because of what happened the week before in Baltimore, and it wasn't a block. It's just he doesn't have as powerful of a leg on a 58-yarder. Maybe it was the execution on the hurricane drill, Mayday, whatever you want to call it. I think that it is a far larger special teams issue. You do still have Jake Moody on the practice squad, which is good, but I didn't put that block on him. That was a protection issue.
Even though he missed one, though, but got bailed out because of the penalty.
Sure. I mean, the obvious thing here is that we know what his leg strength is. Like, we've been talking about this for more than a year now, and they know that, but they've been so adamant that when he's healthy, he's their kicker. Like, if you're going to make a move, then you're not keeping 2 kickers on the 53, and that would mean you're releasing Cairo Santos. And I don't know if they're at that point yet to want to do that.
I vocalized my thoughts on Rome's dad yesterday, James Adunze, who's been tweeting.
Yeah.
Before I tell you my thought, what is you've covered a lot of athletes in a lot of different towns, Courtney, and I'm sure you've dealt with this before. So what is your thought on when a dad is on Twitter endorsing the possibility of the coaches not giving Rome enough targets or wanting Rome to be traded? How do you talk about this one?
It's tough. I actually talked to Rome about this pertaining to last year. He and I sat down during the bye week, and I remember I asked him just about, like, did your frustrations mirror what your dad was tweeting last year? Because remember, there was a time where somebody's like, if Rome was on any other NFC North team, he'd have 1,000 yards, and the dad, James Adunze, quote tweeted it with 1,500 yards. Like, fathers, parents, mothers, whatever. Like, family members are always going to try to stand up for their guy, but it's a real bad look when there's been about one play a game that Rome has put on himself as, I need that play back. I need to catch that ball. I mean, the one in the end zone, and I know that there was the clip going around. It looked like, Caleb kind of threw his hand up. He was throwing his hand up to show that ball was tipped, and Rome said it. I asked him after the game, but he had 2 hands on it. You're the 9th overall pick. You have to make that catch. So it's a real bad look when it looks like daddy ball right now, when your father's saying something like that on social media, retweeting people, talking about, trades and things like that. It's just a distraction. Now, do I fault Rome for this at all? No, it's your parents. Your parents are going to do whatever they want to do. Like, I think that Caleb went through this last year. Remember when the Joe Witt press conference in Washington and the week after the Hail Mary
Coaching
game when
matters.
he was like, accountability, #real coach. Carl Williams tweeted about that, and Caleb was, Caleb, I believe, was asked about it right then and there, and he's been asked about his dad's tweets at other points. I don't think he's tweeted anything that's been inflammatory, but, it's the power of social media, and it's the power of when you're an athlete in a city like this, and if your stat line doesn't reflect a certain level of play, if somebody's calling it out, making it seem like you're not at fault, it's not a good look. And I feel for Rome for that, because I'm sure that, he sees it just like we do. So that's my take on it. I want to hear yours, Silvy.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me because of like what you said. I've dealt with a lot of dads, they're always going to have the corners, like you said, moms, dads, husbands, wives, like they always will bellyache and look to blame someone else for the struggle. So to me, like I say exactly what you say. I want Rome to make those catches. I love Rome Odunze. I think he's growing still too. And he's a really, really good player, and it doesn't bother me anything that, like, I don't think it's a bad look for Rome, and it doesn't bother me that James is putting it out there. Like that's some of the dads, that's how they are.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a distraction. It's not like causing friction in the locker room or anything like that, but I do think it doesn't, I'm sure Rome's probably like, hey, Dad, can you, like, lay off Twitter for a little bit, because it's embarrassing a little bit, like, but your parents are always going to have your best interest at heart, and they're always going to, vouch for their kids. That's the way it is. I mean, I've covered it. I've dealt with this since I covered AAU basketball, and it no matter what the level is, the people who support these athletes who go out there every single week are going to want to see them put in the best position. But it's not to say that Rome hasn't been put in the best position. He's been targeted a lot. He's had some really good games. And he's had some quiet games. Like, doesn't take away from the fact that he's an awesome human being and an awesome player, and he's making his way in this offense. And there are moments where he knows that he has to be better, just like he was. Like, he said it on Sunday. I talked to him about this, so I don't think it's an issue at all. It's just a little precarious timing-wise with the trade deadline and the fact that that catch was on him.
The only time I really had a problem with a father was last year in the NBA postseason with Halliburton's dad. When did he run on the court? Was it at a referee?
It was against Milwaukee. Yeah. It was against Milwaukkie against Giannis. I believe that was game.
Yes, he went at
whatever
Giannis,
the game they won in overtime.
Yeah, he was taunting him like that. Okay, Dad, you're way out of bounds. Like a guy tweeting just ignore it if you want no part of it. But like when Halliburton's dad runs on the court,
You got kicked out of one of your son's baseball games recently,
that
didn't you?
is untrue. Completely
I thought
untrue.
I heard that. Or was that wrong?
Completely untrue.
Yeah.
It's not even a fabrication because it's not even been out there until just now.
I must have heard it wrong,
Yeah.
Courtney. I heard that Silvy got booted from one of his kids' baseball games for being an inappropriate acting father.
Were you yelling at an umpire?
No, I will. Courtney, you'll appreciate this after doing the feature on George McCaskey. The last person, and I always tell this to our kids, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about the umpire. Look, we all have to live with it. They're out here and they're making the games go on without the umpires, without these people who volunteer and who get paid low wages to ump a game. We have to deal with that. And
Let me yell at him. You just go sit down.
Don't let it up to them to call you out on a strike three. If you don't want to be called out on a strike three, swing. That's what I tell the kids. And I think the last people we should blame are umpires.
Look, I get it. And I lasted 3 games as a 5th grade umpire in Glenview Youth Baseball because I had to throw two parents out at Westbrook. It was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. I think I was like 12, 13. And these were like kids. It was T-ball. And I had to throw 2 parents out.
Unbelievable.
And I was a child myself. So, yeah, that's why I don't have the skins for that.
You want John Morant for the Bulls?
No, absolutely not. He's a problem. And like you don't put up with headaches like that unless they're worth it. If we're talking about 3 years ago, Ja, prior to the gun brandishing and everything else and the fact that he doesn't seem to fit in this offense, if you're talking about that version, the guy who led them to a 2 seed, then sure. Not this version. Absolutely not.
The only problem with that, and this is what I always say, and I think it is an interesting thing, and I'm not don't get me wrong, I'm not go get Ja. I think it's an intriguing thing, and I'm not saying no to it only because you're not getting Ja from 3 years ago. That team isn't trading that player. Any player who's going as well as that, they're keeping those players. It's why the Bulls haven't been able to have a superstar. So sometimes you have to buy low on a guy with talent who's still young and think about it. And look, I don't blame you if you don't want it because there are a lot of issues. But that's the only reason I bring it up.
Speaking of parents that you'd have to deal with, you'd be dealing with Ja and the whole crew.
That's right.
And the family, too, on that.
His dad, yes.
She shot you down on that.
She did.
Yeah.
She did not want him. I'm more open to that's very good pun. Yeah.
I'm here for the laughs on a Tuesday, okay?
I know you are.
My gosh.
All right, Courtney, anything else
Courtney.
we need to know? Is that all good?
No, I'm getting ready for this Bulls game tonight.
Or are you going? Are you going?
No, I'm gonna watch. I mean, they're 5-1 right now. Now they've got my attention. Remember, after the first game of the season, I said I wasn't ready to buy in yet. 5-game win streak, and then they lose to the Knicks. I'm ready for tonight. I think they can beat Philly.
They're a fun watch too.
They are a fun watch, and I'm glad I could finally get the network. It's really good.
Yeah.
Courtney, we appreciate it. Thank you.